I am very happy that many of those who are today maybe invisible are next generation, the children of war and children of this terrible pain and crime which happened here. It means that maybe we have continuity not to be silent after this deep trauma of genocide. I would like now to start with very short, few most important sentences which frame the knowledge we have received today about the event in Srebrenica in July 1995. When I'm teaching, my first sentence anywhere is the most terrible form of violence, because we are dealing with violence. The most terrible form of violence is poverty. It's said by Mahatma Gandhi many years ago. The second, I start with ABC of genocide. A, genocide is crime of state and state institutions and resources. On the first place, based on the monopoly of violence. It means army, police, and paramilitary troops. B, denying genocide in post-genocide times. Denying genocide is a strategy of state. The C, genocide is not event. Genocide is a process with three main phases. The first one is pre-genocide, genocide, and post-genocide. Now, 20 years after Srebrenica, we are, I'm sure, in this post-genocide time, with genocide as an important part of our identity, and genocide as social practice in the region. And this is very important. In last maybe 5-10 years, in these post-genocide times, I started to add an D, which shortly I could say, now we have to be focused as well on monitoring the cash flow, to understand who had benefits of war and genocide which happened during the war, I mean wars. I will start now with indictment signed by first chief prosecutor of ICTI, International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, and it's very important that the indictment was signed on 25th of July 1995, a few days after executions. The first chief prosecutor, Richard Goldstone, who was in this time chief prosecutor in The Hague, but in the same time he was judge of Constitutional Court in South Africa, a good friend of Nelson Mandela. To such people we should trust. He signed a few days after he signed indictment, and I will tell you now just a short, for me, crucial part of indictment. Many pages, indictments, it's official, and you know it needs a lot of words, explanations, evidence, and such things. In this indictment, this is part 1, point 1 and 2, is said, Ratko Mladić and Radovan Karadzic, in period of April 92, in territory of Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, with acts and omits committed genocide. And this is very important to know that the indictment was immediately after Srebrenica. I think that is extremely important, especially for next generation, if you want them to understand and not to look black and white, that somebody like him signed indictment a few days after that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a sociologist and psychologist after this my life when I was engineer. It's very important to know that many times it's extremely difficult to open the case with this indictment. Genocide is crime of crimes. He managed that, but it's not only him, it's not fairy tale. You need evidence. You need excellent investigators who will find evidence for case, Jean-René Ruiz is here today, and he is my hero. We never met as well. Because I know how it's difficult to open the case for genocide, and even more difficult, you can open the case about genocide, but it's even more difficult to find evidence. And I think that without people like him, as an investigator, in Srebrenica, we never could have case for genocide. It would be crimes against humanity, war crimes, etc. And I think that it's very important to understand complexity of the case. As well, here, I would like to tell you, maybe you don't know that, and maybe you have no chance to know about that. I mentioned that in indictment, it was since April '92, not only Srebrenica. And this is the third D about genocide, the genocide is process. After that, after hard, difficult work, we have today plus 7 municipalities in Bosnia: Prijedor, Sanski Most, Ključ, Kotor Varoš, Zvornik, Vlasenica, Višegrad. Because Srebrenica, regarding my understanding, could not be possible in few months. It needs time and space. And this is important if you want to understand how it was possible, if you want to prevent, if you want to create new culture of resistance, a new culture which could understand in time that it's maybe possible to happen. I just want to tell you how Richard Goldstone was elected to be the first chief prosecutor, because it's not easy to find such details. The tribunal was, let's say, created after many individuals and NGOs who were here in Bosnia in April '92, May and summer '92, when the most terrible crimes happened in the first period. Many of them really made a very strong pressure in this way to international community to intervene. It means military. It didn't happen in its next public lecture. But after that started the trade, because of this from this pressure from the bottom, it was bottom-up pressure, they tried to create something to make compromise, to do something with doing nothing. And they decided to create International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia. To remind you, it's the first international criminal tribunal in history, which was not military tribunal. We have had, after Holocaust, in Nuremberg, but it was military tribunal. We had in Tokyo in '46, it was military tribunal. After the First World War, we had just in attempt international criminal military tribunals in Leipzig and Ankara, but it failed. It means that first time human beings created something and didn't know what to do with that. Because in the beginning, it was the trade. It was the trade peace for amnesty. They promised to Bosnian Serbs, they promised, especially to military, this embodiment of violence. They promised, we will give you amnesty, stop with this, what you are doing, just start with the peace, and it was the trade. 14 months, international community didn't manage to agree who is going to be chief prosecutor. New public lecture, long story. But Nelson Mandela said, I have great judge in Constitutional Court of South Africa. He had great experience with our situations, with apartheid, such things. He could be very good. And he, Richard Goldstone, after 14 months, became the first chief prosecutor of International Criminal Tribunal of former Yugoslavia. I think that it's very important if you want to understand such extreme situations of war, genocide, war crimes. It's very important to know who are the players. One of important persons in this time, it was Judge Goldstone, and he established all good parts of International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia. I wanted to share with you some things you cannot find maybe even in the books, because I started to work with him in '96, and it was the best period of my life. And I wish you to have such kind of experience, not with genocide, with such human beings. Human beings who know what are priorities, who know what is good and bad, what is evil, what is not evil. Richard Goldstone is small, he's not physically impressive, but without him, I think that we couldn't have the case of genocide. It could be forsaken or forgotten, like genocide in Cambodia with 2 million killed, like genocide in Guatemala with 200,000 killed Maya people, with genocide in Argentina with 60,000 killed. Genocide happened in Rwanda in '94, and without such people, we cannot have the cases, and it could be forsaken and forgotten. It's not, and now we have possibility to talk, to try to understand what is post-genocide society where we live now today. A lot of questions in second part I will tell, but only shortly. Post-genocide society, where many of you were born and live today in the region, are societies with experience of genocide as a social practice, not theory. And genocide means direct and indirect victims. You are, as well, indirect victims. Radical in opinion, in attitude, scholars in this topic, they say, I'm not sure, we can open discussion, that everybody who has seen broadcasting of genocide in Srebrenica, broadcasting genocide in Rwanda, is indirect victim. We can open this question. But for us here, it's a legacy of terror and fears, and we have to live with this legacy. And without talking about that, without shattering the silence about that, on micro and macro level, it could not be possible, because this region where we are born and live, this region has been living, like I am in my age. The region didn't work through trauma for centuries. Such events, such authors, such investigators, such prosecutors, such students, they are opening these zones of silence. They are shattering and breaking this legacy of silence we have here for centuries.